So my name is Johan Lemoine. I am a film director. I'm also a musician known as Woodkid. I do lots of things. I do CGI. I do motion design too. I think that's why I'm here. I think my work is a lot about scales and a lot about a certain form of dimension. I've always liked contrasts, and I've always liked how I could compare the human being to the forces around him. I think specifically the latest works I've done are a lot about this. It's also a lot about black and white in the first part of my career. That's what I've been known for around Iron and my first music videos around my first record. I think it's pretty cinematic too sometimes. And more it is defined by post-production, that I try to not make post-production, that I try not, it's also a lot about post-production that I try to bring in pre-production so that visual effects really start to be part of the narrative more than just a layer on top of a shoot or on top of a live action material. I have a lot of mentors, but are mainly musical. But visually, I would say Hideo Kojima is obviously someone that's been very influential to my work, and someone that I think is a genius. There's been a lot of people in contemporary art that have been following the work of. I always try to take from one art to bring into the other. So I love people who have a great ideology of image and who also tell stories. Hideo being someone who specifically does that to me. I have no idea why I'm called Woodkid. It's like a bad tattoo that I did when I was a teenager. I would change that name if I could. I don't know. After my first record, I tried to invent stories to like give it a meaning, but the reality is that I just thought I was cool, and I don't think it's cool anymore. But that's fine. I'm stuck with it. When I make music, I try to not listen to music. When I make visuals, I try to not look at visuals. I always find like other people's music or other people's visuals better than mine, so it always brings me down when that happens. So I actually listen to a lot of music when I work as a motion designer or a graphic designer. I have like Spotify playlist that I've made that's like perfect for working. That usually inspires me some emotions and some feelings. When I was a kid, I would I had a little CD player next to my bed, and I would put the like soundtracks of films in it. Sometimes it's films I had not even seen, and then I would listen to the soundtracks at night and just make my own movies on it. So music has always been a great fuel for me creatively as a motion designer. My trajectory is a bit weird. So I studied graphic arts, but then I started to be an illustrator. And then I was frustrated because my drawings were not moving. And I had been taught animation at school, so I started to be an animator. And I started to make my drawings move. And then I got commissioned for my first films. But very quickly I got frustrated because I wanted live action in there. So I bought myself a camera, I started to film some stuff, and then my production company at the time pushed me to do more live action films. And I started to make hybrid films that were half animation and half live action, and then fully live action. And when I kept moving on, I started to get frustrated because I had been commissioned to do big music videos for big artists, but then I was frustrated because I couldn't control the music. So I was like, oh, what if I started to do something about music and like put it in one of my films? And I made Iron, and then I felt like I made a piece that where I could pretty much control everything. And afterwards, I brought back my knowledge in post-production in it. I taught myself new softwares, and then I added a layer of CGI to my films. Um, Now it's about playing all these tools that I have and trying to move around and um, always not to have that toolbox. I try to find the right tool for the right film. There's a few things I do. I sometimes I ask the machine to contradict me or give me some ideas. So especially since I work with Houdini, I think there's always a lot of ways so that procedural manipulations can help you be surprised by what the machine can give you. So throwing a couple of like parameters in there and like seeing what the result is, almost like a scientist. I have some books that I really like that are almost like encyclopedias that I open and that have a lot of images and influences and ideas in them. And sometimes it's a seed that helps me grow another idea. Um, and sometimes I just take some time off. Sometimes it's fine to like not. I guess it's fine to not be inspired. Sometimes it's part of the game. And I think with all cycles, and I think it's about acknowledging these moments where you're down. If you don't have an obligation to produce work-wise, I don't think you should also always force it. There's always been a strong relationship between both in my work. Um, I stopped for a long time now really analyzing the connection between them because it feels so natural for me that um, I I don't really intellectualize the relationship between music and sound anymore, between music and image anymore. Um, all I know is that when I what I realized is that after talking with a lot of people, like Philip Glass was one of my masters, told me one day that thing. The relationship between image and sound is very specific in a way that um, music on an image will always influence the tonality of the image. It has great power on it, but it doesn't work the other way around. You can apply any image to any sad sound, the sound will remain the sound will remain sad, or will still feel nostalgic. If you have a happy, uplifting beat and you have an image on it that's very depressing, you will still have an idea that the music itself is upbeat and uplifting. But you can completely change the meaning of an image with music. Music has really great power on images. And I think my work has been a lot about this. It's been about having a first point of view as a director and as a musician, kind of transform or alter or give another layer of understanding to my images. In order to not have to balance or to move from one career to another, I just fully focused on my career as a musician, where I can be a director. That's to me the best way to always be doing both at the same time. Also, I'm in an atelier studio in Paris where I have one big room that's dedicated to the visuals, where I have an assistant and I have a team that really help me every day to like build the images around the record. And just next door, I have my music studio where I have my producer and assistant who is on the music side, who is really helping me put the record together and work on anything musical that we do. And by putting these two places in the same place, I can easily move from a room to another, and that helps me kind of like make my brain a bit more connected. Oh, it's hard to say. There's one film I'm very proud of, which is Jewels by Black Atlas, because it's a film that I pretty much did all by myself. That I had not much money um, to do it, and I think I managed to move around constraints that are in a way that allowed me to make something that looked very produced, but that was done with very little money, and just on one computer in my house. So I really like that project. I also love the color spectrum of that project. I like the way colors are handled in that film. But it's hard to say. I'm super proud of Iron and my first films. Because also they triggered something in my career that really changed everything. So in that way, I'm very proud of these films too. One of the last films I did, Goliath, has been quite a journey because we shot in coal mines in Eastern Europe in front of massive excavators, and then I had to like rework all that in post-production and like add a lot of like CGI stuff on it. And I have to say that the conditions that were really exhausting were also very fulfilling in a way, because it was a lot about pushing boundaries of my own comfort as a director, my own comfort as a human, pushing the boundaries of my teams too, who really played the game. And I think that that's an unforgivable experience, definitely. Run Boy Run I think is the second single of my first album. It's a video that talks about the escapism, a certain form of escapism of a child that moves on towards the adult age, and it is done in a way that I have done Iron, my first video, with the same technique of filming, the same ideology and approach of live action. It is a film that doesn't really involve CGI. A little bit in the buildings that I did in it, but all the explosions, all the monsters, everything is done practically. It's just a very extensive amount of compositing, like I did in Iron, which was all about shooting a numerous amount of plates of characters, of ethics, of animals, of landscapes, and then adding them in post, almost like paintings. The idea was really to like make films that were more about composition than that were about action, really. So Iron is a film that's it's changed my life, first of all, because I think there's a before and after Iron. It's a film that I did with little money, but I had like great expectations of like battle scenes and explosions and horses, and I made it in a way that I was relying more on compositing than I was relying on the shoot, really. So I assembled plates of like people running on a digital background, on a green background, plates of explosions, plates of horses running in studio, and I put it all together, but in post. I wanted it to be more a film about composition again than a film that was about action. I wanted it to be almost like paintings, because also we used the Phantom camera, which slowed down everything up to like 1,000 frames per second at the time, I think. And the idea was that I switched the film to black and white so I could keep my backgrounds, my green backgrounds. I'll talk about it in the talk later. It's been quite a constrained film, but at the same time it is a film that is built around constraint. And I think the creative direction of the film and the artistic dimension of the film is driven by the constraints. Yeah, there's always an idea of a message, or at least a storyline. I think a good film, and a film that I like, is a film that tells a story, that has character, and that has a form of meaning. I don't like to explicit the message or the meaning of my work, because I also like mystery. I think we live in an era of the super explicit, where everything is very explicit, where everything is very shown and explained, and everything on the table. And I think there's less and less space for mystery, which I really value, because I think it's a way for the audience to kind of almost organ transplant their own story in my stories and make the interpretation that they want. So I think some of the messages in my work are pretty clear, but I always try to leave it open. I like that kind of like puzzle slash ARG slash like clue game kind of dimension in my work, because I think it's what allows people to really identify to it. That creative decision has been consistent on the first record, but the origin of it is I made that decision because I actually wanted to save some money on compositing. It is by being black and white, I removed one constraint, which is color, obviously, but also integration on green screens, and it really allowed me to focus on something else, to focus more on light, focus on contrast, and to focus on composition, really. That I think I'm the most excited about are the collaborations that I was not desiring or that I did not expect. I like to be surprised, so really anyone who I can learn something from. I would probably be a cook. I love cooking, which I feel like my work as an artist is kind of like cooking, but I would be cooking probably. I would probably always encourage motion designers to take control of the narrative. I know we all of us like at some point get the frustration that we're working for clients, that we're working for someone, and that we don't always have control on the narrative. If you have any chance to like, within the constraints of time and money that represents, if you have one shot at like telling a story with your own medium and your own talent, is to really go for it. Because I think one of the general frustration of that job is that post-production is post-production. It always happens afterwards, and it doesn't really have control on the storyline and the narrative. More and more with the evolution of technology, it is involved earlier in the process, but I think not enough. So I think the best way for people who consider themselves technicians or are considered as technicians, the best way to change this is to also start to be image makers and storytellers. And that's how post-production will become also part of pre-production, I think. Thank you so much, Motion Design Plus, for having me. Super excited of this and of that talk, of everything. It's the first time I really talk about my work as a graphic designer and a motion designer. So I'm a bit stressed, but it's going to be great. Thank you.